Oh, and by the way, President Trump is in the Epstein files, and he children. And don't let anything that's happening make you forget that. And it's not just distractions. Everything that's happening is very real and has to be fought. But you will not also forget that he was on that plane, and underage girls have seen things they should not have on his body. What's up, YouTube? Drill Sergeant here. And listen, this embarrassingly bloodthirsty evil empire, led by a mustache-twirling villain about as believable as Skeletor, if this were a fictional story, is now thirsting after more sovereign countries in which to play dear leader in his playroom, right next to his racing car-shaped bed.
It's mine! Do you hear? Mine!
He's a child, and a cartoon is what I'm saying. What's worse is, thanks to an entire world filled with milquetoast knee-benders, Venezuela looks less like a tipping point to me and more like the beginning of a fucking trend designed to end in a years-long international nightmare. I had this video already prepared to record ever since last week when they did the emergency UN meeting. But atrocities every single day have happened, and I've had to weigh what's more important, what's less important, live show after live show, from the atrocities from this administration. But today, I saw President Jaundice Foreskin step on yet another rake that brings it back to relevancy. Watch this.
Donald Trump very casually, are we going into Colombia? Maybe. Are we going into Cuba? Sure. Are we going to try to take Greenland by force? Yeah, maybe. But we're going to start going into Mexico and hitting land.
And we are going to start now hitting land with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country. But the cartels are running, and they're killing 250, 300,000 people in our country every single year. The drugs, it's horrible. It's devastated families. You lose a child or a parent. Parents are dying too with drugs.
Be the most dangerous part, because Trump doesn't seem to understand it. Cartels are not governments. They are not an army with a uniform. They are not static targets. If the U.S. starts bombing inside of Mexico, the cartels are not going to complain by filing a grievance with the United Nations. The cartels are going to respond by kidnapping Americans, by killing Americans, by targeting American tourists and business people and aid workers and journalists, and they are going to do it immediately. That is how criminal organizations operate.
Now, for the mouth-breathing mole people out there who call themselves MAGA, if you could dismount your sister for long enough to listen to this, it would do you some good. That is what you get when you put in power a child, an ignorant, indecent, inhumane person, all because you think he's going to be indecent and inhumane to the same people you don't like. He doesn't respect international law because he doesn't understand it. He's a child, and the unintended consequences are you and your family get kidnapped because he doesn't know the difference between a state actor and a non-state actor. So now maybe it'll mean more when I say to you, you molehill morons, that what the president is doing is illegal under international law. The Maduro operation was a blatant violation of the Charter of the United Nations. And maybe that means more to you now, that you realize what not following the law and not knowing the difference of why these laws are made, or not knowing the reason behind these laws, aren't just about rah-rah flag waving. They have actual consequences. Are you listening now? Good. So, as the no-war president got his Department of War to launch a kidnapping under the cover of darkness in a foreign sovereign territory, what's next, America? Huh? What's next? Donald wants to take over, because he's been telling us since before he entered the Oval Office for a second term. Jesus Christ. It is kind of all laid out there for us. Why else was Venezuela mentioned 19 times in Project 2025? Huh? The president couldn't wait to talk to the press after kidnapping a foreign leader, to boast about reasserting American dominance, seizing the oil, punishing Venezuela for sending migrants, stopping the drug trafficking, and, of course, saving democracy. For you molehill morons out there that need that for your justification. Because nothing screams democracy better than taking over a foreign nation. America first. Huh? Trump's talk of the illegitimacy of President Maduro's term, it's hollowed by the fact that he doesn't want the contested winner of the last Venezuelan election to take power. Yeah, Edmundo Gonzalez, he won. He was Maduro's opposition in the last election, and he didn't even get a mention. Oil companies got more of a mention than he did. Now, far be it from me to poo-poo on the vice president taking over, because that's how it is supposed to go. But if your job was to bring democracy, the F out of here, people. Where's Gonzalez? Where is he? You don't care. You know where Shell Oil is, though, and all of the business interests who he actually told he was going before he told Congress to get the approval he needed to start the war. But I digress. The opposition party leader also wasn't considered by Trump, probably because she got the Nobel Peace Prize that Trump's been coveting for quite a while. She's also currently in exile, but she is supposed to be meeting with him. And I'm sure she's going to give him that Nobel Peace Prize that she won. And we're all going to have to sit here and throw up a little bit in our mouth as we watch it. I think it's happening next week. People, this is the level of international diplomacy Trump has reduced the world to. Now, effectively, any country can kidnap leaders at will and take over sovereign states if it's in their interests. Period. I mean, how can America rebuke or condemn anyone if they choose to do the same thing? The President of the United States, as well as taking a hammer to the rules-based order, is constantly following a legal loophole of international law I just found out, and it's called "Who's Gonna Stop Me?" That's his law. That's his doctrine. The dumb Donro doctrine. This is not a good message to be sending to the world. America's record of forcing regime change by force hasn't exactly turned out great over the last 30 years. 40 years. 50 years. Huh? Stephen Miller told Jake Tapper that the real world is ruled by strength, by power. By strength and by power.
Venezuela. By definition, that's true. Jake, we live in a world in which you can talk all you want about international niceties and everything else. But we live in a world, in the real world, Jake, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world.
But
that
are you
existed
saying that
the beginning of time?
But in terms of day-to-day operations in Venezuela, that is acting President Rodriguez, right? It's not some sort of American emissary.
No, what I'm saying is, we'll keep going here, Jake, so I want to say what I'm saying and you'll follow up. But what I'm saying is just one level above that, which is that by definition, we are in charge. Because we have the United States military stationed outside the country. We set the terms and conditions. We have a complete embargo on all of their oil and their ability to do commerce. So for them to do commerce, they need our permission. For them to be able to run an economy, they need our permission.
These are the ramblings of a first-person shooter LARPer, Call of Duty game player, a 13-year-old pimpled boy, not a statesman, not an intelligent adult. These people are masked, juvenile, regressive, narcissistic sadists, masked in adult bodies. That's what they are. And that's why you get the statement from Trump about just bombing cartels, because he doesn't know the difference between a state and a non-state actor and the consequences of doing so. Latin American countries like Colombia, Mexico, and Cuba are likely to be targeted. especially after Trump accused the Colombian president of making cocaine and said Gustavo Petro should watch his ass. Trump also said that we'll be talking about Cuba. And Marco Rubio added to this rhetoric by saying, if I lived in Havana and I was the government, I'd be concerned. Is that a threat, boy? Marco Rubio, who's been delegated to the back of the couch while mom and dad make up and have sex on it, who's forced to look at the corner of the wall until he's called out by Pappy. You're no one to be acting strong. Didn't Trump literally beat you down on stage like 10 times in a row already? Anyway, I digress. Now, the Cuban response here was, all nations, and this is a quote, all nations in the region must remain alert as the threat hangs over all. Cuba supplied President Maduro security and lost 32 of its nationals in the American strike, by the way. Here's another quote from him. Our compatriots fulfilled their duty with dignity and heroism. So yeah, that's a confirmation if I've ever heard one. President Trump said on Sunday that military action wouldn't be necessary in Cuba because it was ready to fall. I wouldn't hold my breath on a promise like that. Here's Colombia's reaction. Their president responded to the Maduro kidnap by reinforcing the border with 5,000 troops. He also called for an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. And here's the biggest problem, YouTube. The entire world watched many countries refusing to condemn outright the abduction of a foreign leader. And you'll listen to the news people out there tell you, well, the world didn't like it or they condemned him. No, they didn't. They said we stand with Venezuela. They refused to actually say the name US, USA, United States, America, none of the above. They refused to actually even say the name of the president, of the reason why they were there at the emergency meeting. The only three people who did were China, Russia, and Venezuela. And you're looking pretty bad when they're the only people willing to call it out, and they're the only people who actually like it. What are we doing? President Petro also called for a regional meeting of the OAS, that's the Organization of American States. This is just over a month ago in an interview with CNN. He insisted American interference in the region was about oil and not drugs, and then our buffoonish president went ahead and confirmed that for you on the day after we stole a president from a sovereign country.
The US administration going after drug boats, they say. We've seen more than, 80 people killed. And if it is about drugs, do you think that Colombia could be at risk here?
No, lo que está detrás es lo mismo que está detrás de la guerra de Ucrania.
¿Qué es? Which
Petróleo.
is?
Petróleo.
Que los americanos van atrás del petróleo. Americans are chasing
tiene
oil.
que ver con todo lo que he hablado en esta reunión, que a veces tú pues, la coges como un tema ajeno, pero está en el centro de las circunstancias. Entonces se llama petróleo. Colombia no, Venezuela tiene una de las mayores o la mayor reserva del mundo en petróleo hasta ahora pesado. Ojo con esa definición.
They took our oil rights. We had a lot of oil there. As you know, they threw our companies out, and we want it back.
Donald Trump has openly admitted that he wants to take Venezuela's oil. And top officials in the Trump administration have also revealed that the reason that they're waging war against Venezuela is they want to take over its oil. Now, if you know anything about the long history of U.S. meddling in Venezuela and the U.S. government's many coup attempts in Venezuela, this will not come as a surprise to you. Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. And U.S. corporations have been desperate to get access to Venezuela's oil ever since back in 2007, when Venezuela's leftist former president Hugo Chavez kicked out U.S. oil corporations and fully nationalized Venezuela's oil industry. This affected three major U.S. oil corporations, ConocoPhillips, Chevron, and ExxonMobil, along with some European oil corporations. So with this policy, the Venezuelan government was saying that the oil of Venezuela belongs to the people of the country, not to foreign corporations. However, according to Donald Trump, Venezuela's oil belongs to the United States. Trump was asked about this by a journalist who pointed out that Trump has declared a full-on naval blockade of Venezuela to try to prevent Venezuela from exporting its oil to China, to starve Venezuela of oil revenue to try to cause an economic crisis that leads to regime change. So this reporter directly asked Trump if the goal of the naval blockade is to bring about regime change in Venezuela. And Trump responded by saying that Venezuela's oil belongs to the U.S., that U.S. corporations want to get access to that oil, and they want to control Venezuela's land.
Obviously, Colombia, Cuba, and Mexico want their sovereignty respected, as does Greenland, which is also on the president's wish list. You know that, right? And again, Donald Trump has said that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security. And with a U.S. base already there, that's bullshit. No, I'm sorry. Let's make it, there's not just a U.S. base already there. The U.S. has rights to build as many bases there as they want. I'm trying not to yell because I promised myself in the new year I would only use the knife hand with functional speak. I'm sorry. But I'm trying to make sure people understand me this year. We can build as many bases as we want there. We already have a treaty there. We have a treaty for our military there. The Danish prime minister warned that if we were to do this bullshit, NATO is effectively dead. And if NATO fails, Vladimir Putin will think Christmas has come early. Maybe that is the point, though, isn't it? Let's hear what the president has to say.
For det første, så mener jeg, at man skal tage den amerikanske præsident alvorligt, når han siger, at han ønsker Grønland. Men jeg vil også gøre klart, at hvis USA vælger at angribe et andet NATO-land militært, så hører alting op. Altså inklusiv vores NATO og dermed den sikkerhed, som er blevet tilvejebragt siden afslutningen på 2. verdenskrig.
Prime Minister of Greenland is calling for friendly cooperation with the U.S., not conquest, of course, because they only have about 30,000 people that live there. And now that our new rule of law is you can't stop us, so here's my dick on the table. I would think they're pretty freaking scared. Looking at the face of a madman willing to destroy the earth. And if you're still wondering why it matters to you, and you didn't get it the first time, it's because every single one of these laws that break down invites lawlessness on us. And it doesn't mean they have to come with planes that bomb. Non-state actors. That breach of international law, it breaches sovereignty and shows no respect for territorial integrity. Clearly, the only people that think America would be justified is America. YouTube. I know the moles have gone a long time ago. The cognitive dissonance can only be handled for so long. For the rest of us, of course Donald Trump touts national security, but it seems fortuitous that Greenland happened to have a vast mineral wealth. And we already know about Don Jr.'s mineral company that he's now on the board of that just received $750 million from the government. However, the fact that there's over 100,000 U.S. troops in Europe right now isn't filling the people with a sense of safety right now, YouTube. Not glowingly. So here we are. It looks like 2026 could be a pretty turbulent year. Will Slayton from the Bulwark makes the argument that this isn't the first government Trump has tried to topple within his hemisphere. But the second after Trump's actions on January 6th, when just like the other day, he watched events unfold from a big screen while the people at the Capitol were hunting the Vice President, Mike Pence, and attacking law enforcement, he won't be the one affected by it. It'll be your children, or you, or innocent people in any home anywhere, when the non-state actors get involved and hostage-taking becomes something that Americans will be getting used to. I'm not willing to take that chance. Unfortunately, the abduction of President Maduro and his wife has showed the world that if President Trump covets what your country has, he's willing to do anything to get it. I, for one, will not give my consent, even after they mess with the cartels. And then the response from non-state actors like cartels are to do things that hurt other Americans. That's going to be the first thing they use to manufacture the consent of war. Remember, I told you that. I will not give my consent. On the other hand, the time to fight is now.
Hey, yeah, you. Before you click away to watch someone unbox a tactical toothbrush, let's talk about something real. Political Drain isn't just another content mill. We're a digital front in a very real war. Not with bullets, but with ideas, with action, and with solidarity. We pair urgent news with critical education. And we build community around actual resistance, not the hashtag kind. The kind that moves. But here's the thing. None of this is free. It isn't. Behind every video is time, labor, research, and some weird guy asking if we're going to pay the hosting bill. And yeah, some of that money goes to things we can't necessarily say out loud. If you know, you know. Let's just say our special ops aren't Call of Duty LARPers. They're people making real moves to protect, uplift, and organize. You're not just funding a channel. You're funding a resistance network in a world where capital still calls the shots. Unfortunately, in a system built on artificial scarcity, even mutual aid has a price tag. And if we want to grow, if we want to win, we need your help. We need your help. So if you've got even a few bucks to spare, toss it our way. It's not for ads. It's not for merch drops, but for people making moves in the shadows so others can do it in the light. It's just us and you. So fund the mission, fund the fight, fund the future, because nobody's coming to save us. We save each other. That's how this works.